Church and Cardinal Pell. That's a sentence, isn't it? The Catholic Church seemed to handle pedophilia in an evasive manner, my opinion here, simply by relocating the offender to a new diocese and location, preferably interstate or overseas, I've noted. We saw this in the US and in particular Boston, and now within Australia, Cardinal Pell himself being relocated to the Vatican. Are there any other similar activities that highlight an incident of abuse has taken place that we should be looking out for in the future? Like, apart from just moving them places, are there other things that they do that are kind of red flaggers for us? That if we notice our particular teacher or a priest has been moved somewhere, are there other things that and if we have we say, oh, that's happened, now this has happened, now this has happened, okay, there might be something, to worry about here that you know of.
Well, they don't always move them, so that's not their only option. I think for Cardinal Pell, that became the option. And now I had been corresponding with him. We'll talk about this further. But I have him on paper. I had been corresponding with him, and then during this journey, sometime later, then he was sent to the Vatican, and I thought, yes, things are heating up. I'm not the only person directing these issues to you on paper properly. And so I don't know if people are aware, but that position was created.
I know that.
And I think the reason they sent him to the Vatican is, I have a document here. I conducted research and wrote an article. Basically, the Vatican is its own state. It has several dimensions. It's basically the Vatican. The Pope is a king of his realm. He is the prime minister of his country. There are several layers or several dimensions to the Vatican. So I think they sent him there under the guise that he would be thoroughly protected. But the fact that he was arrested, let alone charged and brought back to a proper judicial setting, that was obviously testament to the hard work of the detectives who were working the case. That is, I applaud them, because I know as a former operational police officer just how difficult it is to get child abuse issues into a court, not just to investigate them, but to get them
to be extraditing from another country.
Yeah, all the layers that would have been involved there. It really is a testament to the work, and that's why you're freezing. Am I freezing? No? Your image is freezing at the moment. It's freezing up.
Oh, you're right. You're fine. I can see you perfectly.
Excellent, as long as I'm not freezing up. Okay. So basically that's testament. And as I said earlier, we must remember there are good people working in amongst the other type, and that can't be easy. So the fact that they actually got Cardinal Pell back to the country, and it went dry. I remember researching, and it went dry. So he was here, and then it just evaporated from the mainstream media.
Exactly.
And I realised, oh, this is serious. They've actually got him into court. There's an evidence, a brief has been compiled, and it's made it to court, which is good. But in order to impanel an unprejudiced, unbiased jury, you can't have it splashed about the media, because that will make it difficult for him to have a proper trial. So the fact that they pulled all that together is extraordinary, and I'm really pleased. I'm really pleased that there was a win. I don't think 6 years is appropriate. I think he deserves much longer. You mentioned Boston. While I'm thinking of this, let's just say I don't have a lock on my post box outside my house, and a copy of Spotlight was delivered to my house before it was available. It had been shown once in Adelaide at the Adelaide Festival, but let's just say the movie Spotlight a copy of it turned up in my letterbox, and I was watching it and I was extremely fatigued, and then right at the end they had a list before the credits as part of the movie. They listed all the different places in America where other systematic child abuse had been uncovered. Then they had a list of all the international sites, and there in the last column was Wagga Wagga. And I got up in my fatigue, I found this energy, and I went over, I pressed pause, and I went, oh my gosh, someone's watching. I relayed that to my underground, and the message I got back was big grin. just to begin. So I know they're monitoring, and I know they're making sure information and evidence gets to where it's supposed to be going. So that was great. That really filled my spirit that day.
Yeah, that would have been a good day. I could only watch that movie once. I can't go back a second time, but it was brilliant.
So basically it showed you what they were up against. It was not easy. It took quite a battle. And then the clincher was the fact that a person in a position of authority had to crumble.
Yeah.
Had to.
And that's what I was saying earlier. We need these people exposed at the grass level, and then YouTubed everywhere, you know, and then they
just please remember that everything I do properly, because just as I said to my underground, we work together. I have one boundary. Anything you bring to me, anything you bring to the table, it has to be obtained lawfully, legally. Otherwise, logic dictates, what can we do with it? We can't do anything with it. So it has to be obtained properly. And that's what I've done for many, many years. So it would be timely for the public to start working with me, so to speak. But let's go back to Cardinal Pell. Now, I've got him on paper. And, excuse me, on paper I can prove, maybe not in every single instance, but in my instance, so let's talk from my perspective and what I have on paper. I can show that Cardinal Pell does not, or did not in my instance, did not address my concerns. He flicked it to another person in, I later discovered this was one building. It was flicked to 3 offices. It ended in the office that's called Towards Healing, and that office is purportedly designed to address child abuse issues specifically. And in my correspondence with the person called Michael Salmon, he manages the Towards Healing office, it is evident, actually, let's not put his name in there. Okay, I'll start that again. You can edit, can't you?
Yeah. Perhaps I should ask the question first that you're about to answer anyway.
Okay.
So, in your own words, you've stated that you believe the Australian Catholic Church school administration system appears to have been set up to fail. What do you mean by this in regard to, say, the Ballarat victims or any victim of child abuse and, of course, Cardinal Pell?
Okay, let's speak from my perspective of my first-person interactions with Cardinal Pell, and from the local bishop to Cardinal Pell to other people that he works with in his administrative systems, the Catholic Church administrative systems. This was in Sydney, the capital of New South Wales. Now, basically, on paper, I can prove that they flick child abuse reports from office to office. They end up at the Towards Healing office, which is managed by a particular person. And that person I have in writing, and I can show that that person does not even know or understand the mandatory reporting legislation, and that person is managing that office. So I have them all on paper. I can show. So I don't believe that the Catholic Church adequately, we mustn't lose sight of the fact there are good people in amongst the other type. So basically, I'm sure that issues do get addressed, but speaking from my instance, I also know of one instance in a school where a teacher was promoted. So instead of moving them or hiding them, they actually promoted them.
Wow. So put them in a position of authority to kind of quell the uprising.
Whatever. And in that instance, my understanding is there is photographic evidence.
Oh, yeah, well, I know about that, don't I?
It's many years ago. It's many years ago now, but I'm hoping that somebody has a little device. Yes, all the students have mobile phones now, and I'm hoping that there's a USB or a device or something on somebody's hard drive somewhere where that photographic evidence has been kept. I haven't seen it, but I've been told that at a certain function in a private residence, certain activity was happening and a student photographed it. Okay, and that person was promoted.
Wow.
So they don't always move them. They don't always hide them. So they don't always do one manner of addressing.
Well, I think after Spotlight, they had to change their method. Was it modus operandi? Is that the right phrase?
Yes.
They had to change that.
In police, it's your MO. Yes, your MO, your modus operandi.
So, look, I thought it was suspicious, but how suspicious did you think it was that Cardinal Pell did not return to Australia to face the Australian Royal Commission into child abuse?
Excellent question. I'm going to answer it first with my experience. Now, as soon as the Royal Commission was announced, and that was because of Chief Inspector Peter Fox and his... Yes. Now, a friend rang me and said, Amanda, there's a commission. So I put I put what I had at that time, I put that together, and they weren't even set up. I got in there so quick. I put my little package together, and I sent the chair. I found his chambers. I spoke to his assistant. I got a secure address. I packaged it up, got it in, and then answer came there none. So things progressed because it was over a few years. Things progressed and I hadn't heard anything, so I went again. I had to push to even get an audience. And I remember calling the lady, the assistant to the judge who was the chairperson of the commission. She said, oh, yes, I remember you. It was a big yellow envelope and you were one of the first. So the assistant remembered quite clearly. I sent it by registered post, so it'd have to be signed for. And I had to fight. I had to fight to get my audience for the Royal Commission. And let me tell you, part of the process, and luckily I had an excellent support person come with me. And basically at the end of it, they give people a thank you card. But I presented myself, I was so organised. I had everything in a folder, everything absolutely sorted out. My support person had a folder, I had a folder, I had a folder presented for them. Everything was done professionally organised. Even the legal person that they have with the commissioner who addresses you, he said, yeah, we haven't seen anyone this organised for a while. So the person I saw was the former Queensland Police Commissioner, I believe. His name escapes me, I'd have to look up my files. He stood up and he didn't want to give me the thank you card because he knew I was there for business. I wasn't there for a bloody thank you card. And he stood up and he was fumbling with it like, okay, it's probably easy with other people. Yes, you give them a thank you card and they think that's lovely. I was not there for a thank you card, I can tell you. I was there for business. I was there to get things done. So basically, that's my experience. Now, let's bring it back to your question.
That's interesting that you should phrase it like that. So you reckon it was all about looking a certain way and not actually doing anything?
And then my next part of answering your question is the fact that the Royal Commission into institutional responses to child sexual abuse. That's a very specific title.
It is.
I think it was partly, okay, some action was taken. It wasn't a complete farce. Some action was taken. There were obviously clusters of people that got together and there was enough information and evidence where they were forced legally to apply legislation to certain instances. But essentially, if we look at the entire process, I think it was a fact-finding mission. Let's see who comes in and tells us what's going on, because I want to mention the Masons here. They're no longer a secret society, but I have a book and I've conducted other research, and I actually know Masons who've told me a bit about the process of being asked to join and what they go through. And I think if people understood that Masons take an oath to protect their brother Mason, no matter how guilty they are, even if it's in a court of law, if they are guilty and the evidence is overwhelming, they have to find them innocent. And I've learned that in the last 6 months. I didn't know that before. So when
most judges would be a Mason, would they?
Well, who knows? It's no longer a secret society, but they have their own symbols that and their handshakes and what have you, that they give to one another. But as I said, I have read books, I've researched, I have somebody who contacted me and told me all about how they were asked and what they went through, and that they are a member. Do you know that Masons pay annual dues? It's like a club. You pay a fee. And if
Yeah,
you lapse,
lodge set up, yeah.
but basically, I want to get to the point where if people knew that they take an oath to protect their brother, Mason, no matter what evidence is placed before them, even if it's in a court and they're sitting on a jury, they are to find them innocent no matter what. They take an oath. So basically, the Australian Royal Commission, if there were Masons, and I'm not saying there were or there weren't, but if there were Masons involved in that, then perhaps as a fact-finding mission, it was an exercise in how do we better protect ourselves. I'm just putting it out there. I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but it would appear to me that, because I only learnt this in the last few months about the oath that they take to protect their fellow members. Online, people are publishing accounts of where a pedophile is in court and the evidence is overwhelming and the judge just lets them go.
I know. Look, I'm staggered daily when I hear these, or they get such a light sentence that it's ridiculous.
They're out on bail, whatever. They're not properly adjudicated. And then I learned about this oath that the Masons take to protect each other. And I'm thinking, can that be applied here? So I'm just asking the question. I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but it seems on the face of it, prima facie, on the face of it, when a pedophile, where the evidence is overwhelming and they're being allowed to walk free, is this because the Masons are involved and they're protecting one another?
It would explain a lot.
It would, wouldn't it? That was my first thought. But I've only come into that information in the last few months. So that's new to me.
See, I've had an experience with the Masons too when I was very young. I don't know if I've told you about this already, have I? My friend, I think I just emigrated from England. It was year 8 for me. So how old are you in year 8? 13, 14?
14 maybe.
14. And my best friend, who I'd only just met a few weeks earlier, her parents invited me over to their club or their lodge for dinner. And so I went there, and the kids were sent to a playroom. We're all playing, and then suddenly, like, half the kids, the actual children of the lodge members, got up, went out of the room, came back, and they're dressed in white robes with blue-green sashes. I know, I haven't told you this, have I? Oh, you're going to love this, Amanda. It's just up your street.
Should you turn the recording off? Should you turn this off?
I'll tell this to everybody. I don't know what the hell happened. I'm not mentioning names. So this is in Brisbane, by the way, everyone. and like, she came over to me, my friend, and she said, "Oh, look, I've got to go and do a thing now with the others, but you just stay here and play, and we'll be back in like an hour at the most." And I'm going, "Oh, okay," thinking a bit odd. I mean, I didn't know anyone. My parents had basically handed me over to her parents, and now I'm in this environment. And so, but I was 14, so I just kept writing or whatever I was doing, or reading. And anyway, I've always been an inquisitive child, which is, I'm surprised somebody hasn't knocked me off, to be honest, because I'm very nosy. Anyway, about 20 minutes later, I'm looking up and I'm thinking, well, where is she? So I go for a wander. It was a beautiful old building, and come to a door, and I peeked around it, and there's my friend with all of her friends, and one of them's lying on like an altar, and there's all these old people around them. And I just thought, wow, this looks really, kind of, I mean, in hindsight, it looked like a sacrifice or something was going to happen. But anyway, about 20, 30 minutes later, she comes back into the room. I'm still a little freaked because I didn't know what the hell was going on. I mean, I'm only 14. I don't know anything, anything about any type of organisations at all. And so we then went off and had dinner somewhere. And then, I've done my research now later in life, and apparently around the age of 13, 14, just as the girls are, blossoming, let's say, or getting their monthlies and that, prior to the monthly, they are used to siphon certain energy channels. Once they've had the period, they can't channel it. They can't be used as a channel to get to wherever these You know, that's what the conspiracy, you know, if we're going to go down that route, that's what that says. And I think I actually saw a bit of it, and at that age. And you know, the funny thing is, I tried to track her down a couple of years back. No, I haven't been able to find the family at all. It's just bizarre. So, but I can find everybody else. You know, it was a school reunion. Found everybody else but her. She was the only one that I could not track down. So there you go. There's a bit of a inkling. It's funny. I remember it was probably about 20 years ago. I'm sitting somewhere and I'm recalling this image, and it kind of then made sense to me. I think I'd just seen Eyes Wide Shut. You know, the Nicole Kidman.
I haven't seen that, but I understand the premise. But know this, that the entire Masonic order is based on black magic.
Yeah, well, that's what it looked like. I mean, seriously, look, I didn't see a knife or anything. He wasn't about to plunge a knife into her or anything, but it looked like there was something going on, and the channeling makes more sense. All I know was my whole being didn't want to be anywhere near it, and I got straight back to where I was originally. I didn't wander around that place at all after that. And in fact, every other time I got invited there, I'd say no. And I just knew not to. And I used to tell all the other kids in the class, don't do, if she invites you to that, don't go.
Yeah, you know? I want to be really clear, black or white magic, I'm not interested. I don't participate, but I'm not stupid. I know how to read, and I've had things explained to me. But I have a book that explains that the Masonic order is based on black magic.
Yeah, well, definitely that was a ritual. I don't know if it was dark or white or light or whatever. But yeah, that was a ritual I was watching, and the fact that they were all in white robes, that was. I remember being shocked actually when they all walked back in, because it was like, whoa, what's going on here? You know, the only time I'd seen anything like that was like a school stage production, you know, of Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat, you know, prior. I'd never seen that kind of, you know, very ritualistic. And don't wander around any Masons lodges.
Oh, it's a very interesting example. Thanks for sharing, but you can't shock me anymore. I know this stuff goes on, and I'm not sure how connected they might be to pedophilia, organised pedophilia. Who knows? I can't say, but it wouldn't shock me if they were.
Yeah, it's funny. Ever since that time, I had been kind of, I'd be heightened around. It's interesting. You know how you get feelings about things? I used to get a feeling about certain people, and you know what? It was always right if there was something. You know,
that gut.
Oh yeah, and I put it all back to that night when that was kind of my awakening to there's some weird shit going on. You know, weird shit.
I remember having dance classes at a particular dance school, and we were downstairs, and I remember once the teacher said, okay, everyone's got to go upstairs, something was happening, and she said, just go upstairs and wait, and it was a lodge. And I remember we were actually in the lodge, the meeting room, and there were all these portraits of these men all around. And I remember looking at them thinking, what's going on? Because like you, I was only like 12 or 13. And I remember thinking, what is this? Because I'd been in other places, like just community halls where they put the pictures of the Masons up there, but I'd never actually seen them meeting, like doing thing. But I remember looking at them thinking, oh, this is where that stuff happens. I just had a conception of it. I didn't really know what it was, but it's interesting how it later on in life it becomes more relevant to the jigsaw of life as we put it together.
Yeah, you kind of have a little epiphany. As I said, I was watching that movie. I don't know when it came out, and I remember there was one scene in it, and I just thought, oh my God, that's what that dude was wearing. You know, and then I kind of had the whole flashback happen, and then I'm going, oh my God, I just witnessed. You know, I was really quite excited at that point because not many outsiders probably get to witness that. You know, it was quite a coup. But now I think, God, how lucky I was. They didn't do anything to me. You know, I'm on the other side now. It's like, oh my God, you know. And it was odd because I broke off we didn't actually stay friends, and I just arrived in the country. She was the only person I knew at the school. It would not be a logical thing to break off a friendship with the only girl you know, you know what I mean? But I did. It was like, yeah, no thanks. Yeah, I won't be doing that. And I went and you know, I grew up in London, for God's sakes, in quite a tough school, and I can handle anything, you know. And then I just kind of, I remember going, you know, that's just not on, you know, and not there was. I just knew instinctively that that was bad, you know, deep, you know, wrong. I think that's probably how I phrase it. So anyway, during your own investigation, you discovered that a fellow teacher inside the Catholic school system had engaged in sexual activity with a student, only just come of age. So what's coming of age? Is that 16 or 18?
18.
That's 18.
18.
Okay. And so it was a boy coming of age, so he just turned 18, in full view of other students present in a private residence. So basically, in full view of other students, a teacher had sex with a student, current student, but who was over 18. Which straight away is why is the teacher even in that group? I mean, that's just wrong. And then the whole sexual activity side, I mean, there's so many layers of that. What the hell's going on?
Yes, yeah. It's a complex situation, and I know more than I'm prepared to discuss, but I will say that no adults were invited to this social setting. No teachers, no other teachers, no adults at all, no parents.
Just the one teacher then? And this is a female teacher? Wow, that's even different. Mm-hmm.
And basically, it was looked at when one of the agencies, when I made the mandatory report, of course I included this, and I was speaking to the child protection manager in the Ombudsman's office. That was one of the agencies I had dealt with. Basically, he was 18, so they weren't going to look at it. But I kept thinking, well, what about all the other students there who viewed it? And he had a girlfriend. And she had to go to school every day and look at this teacher.
Wow. Well, she was there?
Well, no, someone rang up.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, the teacher had invited students to her private residence. Mm-hmm. Commenced having sex in full view, no adults, no parents. The teacher was the only adult there, and all of these students were under 18 except for the one that engaged in sex with the teacher. But when I dealt with obviously I reported all this, and when I was interacting with the child abuse section of the Ombudsman's office, they weren't going to conduct an investigation because the child was 18. Well, he was no longer a child, he was 18 in the eyes of the law, he's an adult. But what about the psychological impact of all the other students, not 18, and who then had to attend school? After witnessing this, I can't get my head around that. I still can't get my head around that. They didn't even want to look at it.
Of course they didn't. I mean, I can't believe they just left the door kind of, you know, they made it that obvious.
And there's so much more to that example. There's much more to that example, but I can't talk about it too much because at some stage I'd like to have that investigated, because students watching a teacher engage in sex with their classmate and then having to go to school, my head I can't get around that. That's not right, and it needs to be looked at. Even without a formal investigation, some type of administrative address of the situation. But I got nothing. I tried. Trust me, I tried.
Do you think a lot of this goes back to the location of where you are too? Kind of, if you're more in the city or?
No, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. That's the one thing I've learned on this journey. It is global. It is everywhere.
It is prevalent everywhere, you're right.
You don't need to conduct a study. You don't need to spend money and conduct a study. It is everywhere. They know no boundaries, but they rely on our ignorance. They rely on the fact we don't understand the administrative systems when they are caught. And also, the administrative systems seem to take people to court where there is no case to be found. We had a very public example here. A local priest was accused of child abuse. He lost his on the face of it, he lost his reputation, he lost it all. And the parents of the child came forward and said, yes, we made it up, we were angry at him. Eventually came forward. So there's also that aspect. And just recently, this is very interesting. Now, let's go back to the example I gave you of the child with the permanent physical injury. has been examined by a paediatric neurosurgeon, has been interviewed by the detectives on film, describing the injury, has disclosed to 20 professionals, 10 medical professionals and numerous police, over 100 fax notifications. And I'm pushing to have that compiled into a brief of evidence and placed before a court. And yet I have come to learn that locally, child abuse issues with far less are being placed before the court. Far, far less. Far less. And I know of instances where, for instance, a girl, I know of 2 instances where a girl has alleged rape, has alleged sexual assault, but at some stage of proceedings has relented and said, I made it up.
Wow.
So where's the balance? Now, why can't I assist the family of this child with a permanent physical?
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. It's not. It's just not a fair system, of being.
The system would work, but people need to know how it works. People don't know until something happens. That's impressed upon me all the time. People don't know the system until something happens, and then it's their child or a child they love and care for is involved in the family courts, the criminal courts, or something happens. It's only then that they are introduced to this system, and it will work. I've made it work. I've had matters actually addressed. There's one matter that's currently before the courts. I can't talk about that. So I've had some success, but people need to understand the system, because I'm not saying it will happen to your child, but anything could happen, even if it's their friend or like they're at school. The example I just gave you, what if they witness something? That can impact on a child as well. And it just seems to me that it's a combination of administrative systems and legal systems not having options where they can follow through and address. No one's using logic and at least addressing some of these issues. And then there's someone like me I'm doing everything right. I'm not demonstrating. I'm not committing crimes or planning crimes. I'm not asking anyone to engage in any crimes. I'm just trying to get these issues addressed. You would think but we don't live in an ideal world, do we? That's what it boils down to. We don't live in an ideal world, and people need to wake up. They need to wake up and realise.
I think this judicial thing needs to be looked into, because I think it's obvious to quite a few people that, sentences that are being dished out aren't fair across the board. I mean, there should be, there should be certain criteria you meet. That just like when you mark a test, there is criteria. There's grading criteria. There should be, if you've done so many things, no matter how great your acting ability is in court, if you've met those 5 things, then this is this is what you have to be.
Okay. Can I explain something to you? When I was studying criminal law, I was shocked by one aspect of what I learned. I learned that judges have a going rate.
What?
So, yes, let me explain. Now, I studied this, it was a while ago now, but apparently they have a going rate. So might be, let's say it's murder. The legislated time frame might be 15 years, but there might be a going rate. In that circuit of judges, they give a particular sentence. It's like a going rate.
A particular judge might have a 7-year rather than another one gives the full amount.
No, it's not even that. It's like in a particular circuit of judges, they have a going rate. They might give life for murder, or they might give 15 years, or they might give the maximum, or they might give them a lesser sentence. It's a going rate. They sort of decide. I don't know how that process works, but during my study, I learned that there is a going rate. Now, I've got my legal books, and then years later I became a police officer, and I'm thinking, okay, well, when someone's charged with XYZ, the statute states they get this many years.
Yeah.
Why isn't the judge applying that? Why isn't every single judge applying that statute as it's written?
Yeah.
Now, unless things have changed since I studied, That was what I learned when I studied, and I was shocked. I thought,
I'm a bit, that explains a lot because.
And then go back to the Masons. Now, I've learned recently, only in recent months, I've learned they have an oath. And it's not a secret society anymore. We all know about them. But they take an oath to protect their fellow Mason, even if they're in a courtroom. And the evidence is overwhelming. They are to protect their brother Mason at all costs. So if that explains something well.
That could easily be weeded out if they, before they became judges, they were given.
It's not even just about judges, it's about juries, it's about administrative staff, it's about all of them.
Yeah, I just realised when you said that, you're right, it's so much bigger, isn't it?
Don't just focus on there are a lot of good judges. Just like there are a lot of good police, there are a lot of counsellors, there are probably facts and docs workers who are turning themselves inside out to protect children. But they, like I said earlier, good people go to work and they have to work with the other type.
Yeah.
They have to work with the other type. So, number one, when you are educated, when you seek out to understand the administrative systems that are the basis for your society. For instance, let's say you go to the police and you report child abuse and you've used your handheld device and you've actually recorded the injuries or the child disclosing or whatever, and you can give that to police. You then have to ask them, okay, if you're not taking action, why aren't you taking action? Because at the very least, assault occasioning actual bodily harm can be applied here. Just as a criminal offence, not even as child abuse or anything else. It's just the offence that can be applied to this situation. Ask them, say, okay, if you're not going to do that, then what's missing? Tell me what's missing. We'll see whether I've got the evidence for you. People need to ask questions. Don't just go into the police, report and give them everything. Do you know how many times I've said to people, now, have you got a copy of your police statement? And they've said, no, was I supposed to get one? It is standard procedure. If you go to the police and you supply information that they put into a statement and you sign it and they witness it, you are to get a copy of it before you leave the station. If it's, say, a road accident and the police officer takes a notebook statement and you sign it, the officer is obligated to type that up at the first possible opportunity and get you a copy of your statement to you. They can call you up, you can come in and get it, but that is how it works. And people don't understand that.
No. Well, I remember I reported the stalker I had here and or intimidator. And when I went into the police station to report that, they didn't give me anything back. In fact, I rang up a week later and they didn't know what, they hadn't actually even given me a call back, a courtesy call to tell me what was going on. And so I didn't receive any paperwork from them at all.
Yes. Sometimes in a large station, it can get busy and you can be forgiven for being...
This wasn't a large station, this was a suburb station.
Okay, well then there's probably less excuse for them to not at least give you a call back.
Yeah, I would have. I think that's the day I realised how bad the state of things. I remember coming home and I was completely this is only about 5 years ago, and I was going, oh my God, I had no idea what a false sense of security I had. Yeah.
So basically, I think with child abuse, crimes against children, people need to start a conversation. For those who are inspired, I will publish something on the Child Abuse Whistleblowers page, and they can print that off and send it to the 3 agencies, and I'll provide some instruction like sending it by registered mail, and I'll provide the addresses. All they have to do is print off the letter, put it in an envelope and pay for registered post, and that would help. That
would be great. Thank you very much, Amanda. This has been so enlightening. I've got these 5 notes here of follow-up for myself now, and I'm sure anyone listening to this is also, once they've got over the surprise at quite a few of the statements here. I'm actually surprised about a lot of stuff we've gone into, like the Masons and that too. It is. I think I just came out with that one story then, but could you imagine if we had a forum on that and ask people to phone in? It might be an interesting discussion, that one.
the only reason I mention it is because anything I mention to you, I will have documented evidence, information and evidence, or I'll have a book. I will have conducted research, and any decent research I print off, so I've got a hard copy. I don't talk about anything that I can't substantiate. And I've travelled very, very carefully. So anyone who chooses to go to the Child Abuse Whistleblowers Facebook page, please start at the beginning so that you know how I went about this journey. And please know that I've conducted myself properly, because I believe I'm going to win. And I'd like to win with everybody, not just on my own. I've had some incredible people by my side. At first I was alone, but I now have an underground, and I can't thank them enough for having my back. Just knowing that they're there. And yes, apparently, should any harm come to me and they need to act on our agreement, it would take 5 or 10 minutes to make phone calls, and within an hour they can have everything uploaded and around the globe.
Well, that'll be good. Well, look, again, thank you very much for agreeing to be interviewed, and I can't wait to see the feedback. Thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.